Does anybody else have a comfort game? Kind of like the video game equivalent of a comfort show that you periodically binge? A game that you play every once in a while, partially just to revisit something familiar, yet also have a good time because it's good? Because mine is Star Fox 64. I love this game. I've beaten Star Fox 64 probably 20-ish times over the years. Now, before you comment about how I need to get a life or something, you should probably know that a single playthrough of Star Fox 64 is only a little over an hour long. The game's very short. And now you might be wondering instead, why would I hold such a short game in high regard? Well, let me explain that. Star Fox 64 is it's just the best, you guys. It's just the best. It's a glorified arcade game, and it knows it. It opens by telling you everything you'll need to know about the story with a short opening narration. It tells you about how Fox's father was betrayed by his former teammates and killed by the evil Andross, and how Andross is trying to take over the entire Lylat system. And then you get thrown straight into the space shooting action. That's all you need. It's awesome. You play as Fox McCloud, leader of the Star Fox team, and you're joined by Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, and Falco Lombardi. Slippy's the team mechanic, but he's also kind of a doofus. Falco's the ace pilot with a pretty big attitude problem, and Peppy Hare is the wise mentor figure that used to fly with Fox's father in the original Star Fox team. These characters, to me, are iconic, and I don't use that word lightly.
I can't believe I lost to this scum!
Sorry to Jeff, but I'm in a hurry.
See, I was born a bit too late to be blown away by seeing 3D graphics for the first time, but I was born just early enough to be super impressed by the ever-growing presence of narratives in video games. Star Fox 64 wasn't by any means the first game with voice acting, but it did have significantly more voice acting than the average game did at the time of its release. Granted, there were a very limited number of games I was even exposed to before playing this one, but still, Star Fox 64 just impressed me in a way that other games just hadn't done at that point. Does anybody remember that feeling of actually fearing dying in video games? That feeling of you feeling bad for letting your characters die in the game that you were playing? You know, that time of innocence before you were really able to separate your own emotions from the simulated ones on the screen? Because Star Fox 64 made me feel extremely terrible for dying. Because when you get shot down, your teammates cry out for you in despair.
No!
Even worse than that, if you allow your teammates to take too much damage from enemy fire, they'll get upset and they'll have to leave for the rest of the level.
Slippy!
Yeah, they don't die, but I still feel super guilty for letting it happen, you know? It's the little things that impact a 5-year-old. But yeah, the characters and the constant radio chatter they dish out gives the game an automatic sense of identity, in my opinion. I suppose I should actually talk about the gameplay instead of just the story and the characters, huh? Well, it's rock solid and it's awesome. When I said earlier that Star Fox 64 was a glorified arcade game, I meant that in the best possible way. You remember when games used to be about getting a high score? 'Cause I do, and to be honest, I never actually cared very much for high scores. The score numbers in video games are usually arbitrarily huge numbers that mean nothing to me. I usually just don't have the mental energy to keep track of which actions score which amount of points, and I've never been a competitive enough person to look those things up. I've been playing Sonic the Hedgehog games for most of my life, and I honestly don't know if I can tell you how much one ring is worth. I remember I checked once, and I think it's 10 points, but I don't really remember. How many points for bouncing on enemies? How many for bosses? I don't know. All I know is that rings and time bonuses seem to be the most important, so I just try my best and then get to the end of the level, only to be met with some number that doesn't really mean anything because the game doesn't do a good enough job of conveying to me how I should be going for a high score. And real talk? Most score-based video games have this exact problem. You want to know how many points you get for defeating an enemy in Star Fox? 1. When you shoot an enemy down, the very large numbers in the corner of the screen roll over and you can't miss it. You can hold down the fire button for charge shots that will lock onto enemies too, and every enemy that's hit with the blast radius of one of the charge shots gives you bonus points. So if you see a group of enemies, you'll want to try to lock onto the one in the center in order to hit the surrounding enemies with the splash damage. This looks cool, takes out the group of bad guys, all of them simultaneously, and nets you the most points. Why is this important? Well, there's actually 3 reasons for that. For starters, the game gives you your score for every individual level, but it also adds those numbers up as you go, culminating at your ultimate high score at the end of the run. The game's so short that it makes you want to just start it up and try again. Second, every level has a medal that can be obtained by beating the level's score requirement. These medals aren't easy to get, so when you get one, you know you're getting closer to optimizing that specific level. And lastly, the score itself is one of the level's hard path requirements. See, any given playthrough of this game will have you seeing 7 levels, but the game has 15 levels. Most of the game's levels are split onto the easy path or the hard path, with a few levels sitting in between, which I guess you can call a medium path. Every playthrough has you starting at Corneria, but where you go from here depends on a choice. See, in the first level, Falco will need help getting some enemies off his tail. Saving him here is actually not super easy despite this being the first level. Most players will lose Falco on their first try. Without Falco near the end of the level, you won't be able to follow him under the waterfall to the alternate boss, so you'll automatically be set on the easy path. Almost everyone will take the easy path on their first playthrough. If you do save Falco, then also fly under these archways on the water right after saving him, Falco will take note of your skills and ask you to follow him as he closes in on the target. Defeating this target, the level's alternate boss, sets you on the hard path. Going back to the scoring system, you'll need to rack up a certain number of points on the next level after that to stay on the hard path. There are a lot of other alternate missions or side objectives that will keep you on the hard path or send you to the middle path, or failing them will keep you on the easy path. If you want, you can cross the score threshold or clear the optional objective on a level, but you can still change course to the easier path anyway. Staying on the left-hand path is a challenge, but going the easier route after clearing a level is always a choice. And I don't think the easy path is actually easy, by the way. It ramps up in difficulty appropriately throughout its levels, just like any game should. The hard path is slightly harder with its level designs on average, but the difficult part about that path is really that these levels each require you to clear some kind of objective to stay on the hard path. Whereas the easy path just shows that you're clearing the levels without doing anything fancy. You're good enough to survive and advance through the game, but probably don't have fast enough reaction time to clear any of the optional objectives. I feel the names of these paths shouldn't really be called easy and hard. More appropriate names for them would be the default path and the skill check path. You know, with all this talk of alternate objectives, I haven't actually given any examples, so I should probably do that. And I'm gonna talk about Macbeth, because it is probably one of the coolest video game levels that I can even think of. It's cool. See, this is one of the 2 levels in the game where you pilot the Landmaster tank instead of the R-Wing. You chase down an enemy train throughout the level, and you end up catching up with the lead train car, where the boss will be unleashed on you. Or leashed on you, actually. The boss is on a leash attached to the train. You can kill the boss in the traditional way, or you can shoot 8 switches that you'll start coming across right before the boss comes out. You obviously can't turn around, so you'll have to keep an eye out and be sure not to miss any while you're dodging obstacles. If you miss any of them, you'll be locked onto defeating the boss like normal. If you hit all of them, though, you switch the direction that the tracks send the boss, and it sends him flying into his own base, and...
No! Give the break! I say, stop it!
Yeah, he's dead. He's dead, dude. Killing the boss like that brings you on the hard route, while beating him normally sends you on the easy route. Clearing the other optional objectives don't give you dramatic cutscenes like that one, but they're still extremely satisfying to accomplish. Of the game's 15 levels, 6 of them have only one outcome. 8 of the game's levels have 2 different outcomes, and one level, Sector X, actually has 3. All of that said, the game total has 25 potential path combinations the players can take through it. Corneria might always be first, and Venom might always be last, but the 5 levels in the middle can turn out very differently on each playthrough, and will depend on both your skill and the choices that you make. You think I'd be done there, but I'm not. There's also a few examples of events that only happen on specific paths. If you get all the way to Bolse without facing up against Starwolf up to that point, they'll appear before you can finish the normal objective of taking out the core. This'll turn a typically straightforward mission into a more chaotic one. I didn't know until last year that if you arrive at Macbeth from Zonus, Kat, the character who helps you on Zonus, will come here and shoot 2 of the rail switches for you.
Make way for Cat.
Heck, Falco already helps out a little on this part as well, but only if he's alive, which rewards you for protecting your teammates.
I'm here to rescue.
There are some more examples of those things too. You won't get nearly as many tips and tricks from Peppy if you let him get taken out.
Do a barrel roll.
And if Slippy isn't with you during a level, you won't get to see that level boss's health bar.
Enemy field analyzed.
Still a bit more, your wingmates will sometimes tell you that they're splitting up and going down different directions when you approach a section that has a fork in the road. You don't actually need your allies for these parts, but they're a lot more exciting to travel with them.
I'll take the left. Hey, Einstein, I'm on your side.
So even individual levels have elements to them that you can't see on a single go-around. There's some cool pieces of dialogue that also happen only in certain circumstances, like how your bros can express how well you're doing if your score is high enough at a certain point in the level.
You're becoming a better pilot.
Or how you can get scolded for accidentally running into a teammate, which isn't even easy to do. You see what I'm doing here? You see what I'm doing? I'm trying to explain that Star Fox 64 is deceptively simple. It's an hour-ish long from beginning to the credits, sure, but one, that's assuming you're already good at the game and you don't die while you go along. And also, even though it's not long in general, it's super dense. Like, it's a short game that's jam-packed with content. And I guess that's why I'm making this video. See, I've played this game a few times a year, every few years, since I was 5 years old. That is to say, every few years I've picked this game back up, and whenever I have, I've played through it a few times in a row. I never went out of my way at any point to search about the game online because, like I said, the game seems pretty simple, and I was just enjoying getting to the end and trying to get a decent score. The last time I played the game was because of my daughter. I had a newborn sleeping on me a lot last year, so I ended up playing some old video games while I was nap-trapped. I didn't know until then about the secret warp in Sector X. I was blown away. At age 29, I had found something new in a game that I had been playing on and off for 24 years. The feeling was so crazy that then I finally looked into the game online and found a few more details I still didn't know about. It kind of just hit me that this game rocks. I had never really realized up until that point that this is one of my favorite games of all time, isn't it? It's weird how you can feel that way about something but not really know it, like you've never consciously articulated it. This game isn't the most ambitious, it isn't the longest, it doesn't have the most impactful story, it has some crusty N64 graphics, but this game has always been with me. And for what it lacks in ambition, it excels in its refinement. The controls are buttery smooth, the music is memorable, the dialogue is iconic, and you know what? The story is good too, no matter how simple it is. It's actually pretty odd for a game with such a simple premise to have such a memorable ending. At the end of the game, the final boss explodes violently, attempting to take Fox down with him.
If I go down, I'm taking you with me.
But then,
Don't ever give up, my son.
Fox's dad appears to guide him.
Father?
This way, Fox.
just as quickly as he appears.
You've become so strong, Fox.
He vanishes.
Fox, you're okay!
Way to go, Fox!
That's our leader. What's wrong, Fox? Nothing. Nothing's wrong.
Was Fox's father really there? Honestly, I don't know. But I'm okay with that. With Andross and his army defeated, the Star Fox team is rewarded by the Cornerian army, who asks them to join them. But obviously the Star Fox team is way too cool for that, so they just run off into the sunset. Man, what's cooler than that? Nothing. There are a lot of small things about this game that I didn't mention, but I'm gonna go ahead and end things here because I would encourage people to play the game for themselves. I think Gen Z could probably use a break from Fortnite, right? Maybe they could stand to learn what it's like to talk about discovering things in single-player games on the playground for themselves. Oh, I heard from my friend that if you do this in this level, you can go here. But if you do this in this level, you can go here. Have you seen this planet yet? That was my experience as an 8-year-old with this game, talking on the playground. Oh man, I miss pre-internet sometimes. That part wasn't scripted, I was just going off. Star Fox 64 slaps. Speaking of space shooters, by the way, did you guys know that I made one? Check it out here. Shout out to my patrons, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.